What do we got in today? 4.7 degrees Celsius. That's pretty cool. Outside we've got minus 10 degrees Celsius. And we went down to minus 21 last night. Pretty cold. I think, yeah, a lot of my pots kind of froze over a bit, just slightly. Kind of the surface kind of froze. Yeah, most of the trees are thawed out now. Yeah, this morning they were kind of all frozen over. My water didn't freeze though, that's still liquid. There's a look at the bucket of water I have in the greenhouse. I collected that the other day when we had a thaw. It was dripping off the roof, so I put a bucket under and caught enough to fill up a whole bucket full. So that's kind of good. It's handy, you know, when things start drying out in the greenhouse, you can water with this really cold water. I went out shopping today and I bought a drill bit for drilling the drainage holes in my marble pot. I'll show you a close-up of it. Here's a look at the drill bit I got. It's a diamond covered hole saw, 10 times life. It's a 1-inch diameter, 25 millimeters, one-piece hole saw. So they say, spray surface with water, begin drilling at 45 degrees, and slowly pivot up to 90 degrees. Oscillate tool during cut. Interesting. Now I do have a drill press in the basement that it's not put together. So I have two options. I can either hand drill these holes in there, mark them out, hand drill them, or I can use the drill press. And I think the drill press would be better. So I might have to get that all put together. It's all in pieces right now. I'm thinking I'll put 4 1-inch holes in this pot. So kind of one here, one here, one here, and one here. I think that'll do. I'm probably going to put a ficus in here so it'll suck up that moisture quite quickly. And I'm thinking the Franken ficus will be the one to go in here. I think it would look really good in a marble pot. I'm going to leave the assembly of the drill press for another video. Right now it's really cold in the basement. It's cold in the house and it's cold in the greenhouse here. So I'm going to wait till it warms up a bit before I begin that work. At the moment, the sun is behind the pine tree over there. So once it swings around a bit, I'll get full sun in the greenhouse and I can begin today's work. I've got 2 layers of trees in the greenhouse, the shelves up here, and then down below, I have trees down sitting on the gravel of the greenhouse down here. And way at the far end, I have the larch forest, and that's what I'll be working on today. I've got the larch forest out on the bench, and you can see the sun is just starting to hit the greenhouse here, so that'll be nice. Warm things up in here a bit. So today I'm going to be cleaning up all the needles. You can see them hanging off all the branches, and they've piled up on the ground down there. Cleaning all that up, and I want to resolve the top of the main tree here. The apex on all my other trees are quite nice. They're quite reasonable. They're not too thick and kind of bulgy looking, except for that main tree. You can see this tree, how the apex comes up, and it's quite nice and slender. There's no kind of thick top to it. I'll show you the main tree and I'll show you the difference. Here's the apex of the largest tree in the forest, and it was quite thick up top, and I carved a big section out of it last time I did some work on it, and it helped a lot. It brought it from looking quite ugly to reasonable. But I want to take it a step further today. I want to make it so this apex doesn't stand out as being thick. I want all the trees to kind of, you know, be as nice looking up in the apex region. So I'm thinking today to lose the crown and take this branch and make that become the leader. So cutting off the whole top there. I think that's, you know, the start of a solution. You can see already up top here how much vigor this apex has, and it'll just keep thickening. So yeah, I've got to reduce the tree down like that. And that is the only branch that's kind of coming out the front that I can do it with, you know, other than finding a new front for the tree, which I don't really want to do because it's kind of settled into this design with that as the front. Here's another view of the apex, and you can see the part that I carved out here. It healed over really nicely. I'll show you a handheld shot of that. I'll come from the front of the tree around to the right-hand side here, and you can see how much that wound is closed in and sealed. I think, you know, one more growing season it would be completely healed over, or at least closed up. Yeah, it's not a bad solution carving it out like that, carving the big bulge off of it. But I don't know. I think I could reduce the height of the main tree just a little bit anyway. And I think, now the bulging kind of starts, it comes up and then it starts to get a little thicker in this area. So I don't know if this is like the very best solution in the world. You know, some people have thought, well, maybe I can gin the top, just kill the top off on the tree. And I don't like doing that because once you do that, there's nothing more you can do. Your tree's set in stone. You know, all my other apex are quite nice. You know, I've been able to reduce branches and keep a nice tapered apex on them. This one here, this one's not bad. This one's quite nice. They're all good. This one's nice. That one's good. My smallest tree's nice, even though it's covered in algae, or lichen, I mean. Yeah, I better do that today, is clean all this lichen off too. That's way too much. Holy. It's a lot of lichen. This tree too. I think I did clean the lichen off at one time, but I don't think I could get into the back trees because they had their foliage on. So I better do that today also. But I'm going to start with this apex. I've got to do something about it. It's just, yeah, it's not looking very nice. So I will deal with that today. So you can see how many branches are up in this apex here. A lot. And I think this one will look quite nice as the new leader. So I'm going to try that. That'll be a first step in getting this apex fixed up a bit. I'm looking at the apex again. I've got to make a decision here. I do like what I began with the carving that out. It helped it a lot. And I'm just wondering, can I keep going with that approach? I just know if I cut the top off down to that first branch to there, I've still got some kind of inverse taper thickening up in that section to deal with. Now it would be a lot less, and I have this kind of awkward looking branch out to the left hand side, which is pretty awkward looking. I'm trying to chase it back. You know, I've been trying to reduce it and try and get new buds so I can eventually make it a nice looking branch. And then other people said, oh, that's a really cool looking branch. It's sort of, I guess, unique, but not something you'd typically see in nature. So yeah, it's tough decisions. Very, very tough. I don't want to, like, what do I want to do? I don't want to, if I cut the top off, then I've got a big scar at the back, like a big wound that, you know, take a long time to heal. I could like remove some of the branches in the apex here to reduce the vigor. Maybe just keeping an upright one, try and slim that vigor down, sort of encourage this lower branch to develop as the new apex, and then maybe, you know, prune off the top someday. That's a possibility. Now I've got nothing down lower that could be a good apex on this tree. There's only that one branch. Difficult decision. Very difficult. I have to cut that whole top off. I would leave one wicked scar. Or I can keep one of these things as the apex and try and slim this down a bit more with some carving, which might be the best thing. This wound did heal over really quickly. I was surprised. Yeah, that wound on the side really healed over quickly. And it's starting to blend in pretty good. So maybe more carving. Well, let's start up top. I'll try and reduce the vigor up top, reduce all those multi-branches down to a single kind of leader. All right, here I go. This is my most upright leader right here, this branch here. This one's coming forward a lot and it's quite thick. So I think that one has to come off. Now, it's going to leave a scar there. I can't really do much about that. I mean, it just comes forward unless, I were to make this as the apex and remove everything behind. But then my apex is coming quite far forward. It's not really over top of the tree like this one is. So I think I'm just going to have to prune it off. So I'm going to do a rough cut first. These are big steps forward. It's kind of scary doing it to an established tree, but here I go. I'm rough cutting it off first. Like that. And then I've got to take it back so it's fairly flush. Getting better. This is a good time of the year to do it when it's not going to bleed too much. Okay, can I get it flusher? Yeah, I can. That's better. Okay, that's a big cut. All right, so I've cut off that big branch coming forward. So one of these two is going to be my leader. And then I'm going to deal with this branch off to the side. Now up in the apex here, I want everything fanning upwards. I don't want horizontal branches and I don't want weeping branches in the apex because that's generally how I see larches growing in nature, is up in the apex. All the branches are going upright and then the final tip is vertical. So I am going to remove this one horizontal branch here. So off it comes like that. And then I've got a sort of a stub in here, dead one, take that off. And then I've got one kind of growing up the middle here, which kind of runs parallel with my apex. And I don't think I want that. No, it's got to come off. It's too vertical. So that comes off like that. Just clean that cut up a bit. Okay, and then I've got to prune back these shoots. Now on my apex here, I've got that double kind of apex. I'll show you another shot of that. You're looking at the front view of the tree now. So here's that apex. It comes up and then divides to the left and to the right. I just want to pick one of them. I don't want that apex dividing into two. And because I already have a branch coming off here, I think I'll get rid of this one. So off it comes. Like that. So this is now my apex. It's the best one I can get. Now I have a big thick branch at the back here, which is also contributing to thickening up the apex, so I've got to take it off. And again, it's a big cut. Here's that back branch here that's very thick, has a lot of branches, a lot of vigor. So it's coming off. All right, big cut coming up. Here I go. Just like that. Wow. And I'll clean that up. I will get that cleaned up so it's not such of a big kind of bulge at the back and it heals over kind of flush. That's looking quite good. All right, here we go. So this is the branch I removed right here. So you can see it's quite flush and flowing. And the apex looks a lot lighter now. Now this is the side view, but even around front, I think it'll look a lot better. Here's a look at the apex from the front now. So you can see it's looking a lot slimmer. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better, I think. Now, there's a branch off here. It's dead. It's kind of contributing to the thickness of the very top of the apex. I'm wondering if I should remove that. It kind of, if I follow my eye up the trunk line, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of takes my eye away. I think I do need to remove it. I think it's just, it was quite a thick branch at one time, and it looks like it's kind of, you know, it's got quite a base down here, and it definitely would look better without it. So I'm going to nip that away. Yeah, that helps slim down the apex a lot. I'm wondering about this branch here now. It's a forked branch. It comes up and then divides into two fairly thick branches. I'm wondering if I should reduce it to one. This branch is kind of coming forward. I could keep the one that's kind of going backwards and reduce this one that's coming forward. So I think I'll do that. Like that. Anything I can do to take vigor out of the apex is important to do. Now, I've got the same thing with this branch here. There's a stub of a branch here, and you can see the trunk line kind of comes up, and then there's a bulge in it there. I think I've got to take that back also. Originally, that branch was alive when I carved this section out, but because I took so much out here, it killed off that branch. It wasn't enough to keep it going. And I'm hoping the same thing doesn't happen to this apex, that I've removed so many branches here that there's not enough live tissue to feed all this. But there's always a chance doing that, you know, you could kill the branch. But if I do, well, that's what happens, and then I'll use this as the new apex here. But I think there's plenty of living tissue going up to this branch still. So I'm going to carve this one away, try and get that to look slimmer. All right, I still need to take more off, so here I go. And cutting back, trying to get this to blend in a bit better. I think that's pretty good. Here's a look at the apex now. So it's not perfect, but it's better. This thickness is better. I wonder, there's another dead branch at the back here. I wonder if I carve that away, I could add a bit of slimness to that section. I think I'll do that too. I'll take that section away. That was this one right here. Because it does bulge quite a bit in that area where the branch was. So I can take a big section out of there. I don't know if that helps a whole lot, but yeah, maybe it's possible I should remove this one too. It kind of, yeah, it's not the most attractive branch in the world, but you know, it is possible to get buds on this old wood. I think I'm going to leave it like it is for now. We'll let that heal. I'll keep the vigor down in these upper branches over the summer. And just, yeah, you know, slowly this bottom section is going to thicken up. And hopefully, you know, through management, I can get the apex to look quite nice. I'll keep trying anyway. I think it's a better solution than, doing a drastic cut on the top. At least for now, anyway. Maybe, next year at this time, I'll reevaluate it and say, oh, yeah, I should have just taken it off. Or maybe I'll say, well, it's working. Maybe it's looking okay. So this will be it for today. I'm going to leave it at that. I think it's an improvement anyway. I think it definitely looks slimmer going up to the top. It doesn't really, if you really concentrate, you can notice it. But at first glance, it doesn't stand out as being really, really bad. I hope. My next task on the larch forest is to clean up all the needles, all the ones hanging in the branches and all the ones on the forest floor. Clean it all up and get it ready for spring. I'm going to start at the top of the tree, and just using a toothbrush, I'm going to loosen up all the old needles. Like that. Just go down each branch. It works quite well. And we'll be using the toothbrush later to clean off the lichen on the branches and the trunks. I will also be checking out the moss down below to make sure it's not climbing up the trunks, which it is. I can see it is. So we're going to be cleaning off the moss around the base of the trees too. So this toothbrush, it won't hurt the buds. It just kind of gets rid of all the old needles hanging on. These things are useful for brushing your teeth too. They're not just for bonsai. So the main tree is cleaning up quite nicely. Getting some nice flaky bark on it. It's starting to mature. It's starting to warm up nice in the greenhouse. It is 9 degrees Celsius or almost 49 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's not bad. I have got all the old needles off the trees. So you can see the branch structure clearly now. I've got a lot of thinning out to do still and pruning. But that'll come. I usually wait until spring when the buds start getting a bit of green on the ends of them. And then you know which buds are alive and which ones aren't alive. Which ones are vigorous and which ones are less vigorous. So yeah, I leave the pruning until spring. So the next operation, you can either leave these needles on top of the moss and they'll decompose, or I can clean them up and try and green the moss up. I've got to get all this moss off around the base of the trees. Otherwise it kind of rots away the outer bark on it. So I've got to do that. So I'm thinking I'll clean all the needles off of the tree. I think that's more important, getting that moss greened up and pruned up and away from the base of the trunks rather than, decomposing as a soil ingredient. I've also got to get all the lichen off. It's very thick on some of the trees. You can see in there all the green lichen. And yeah, you don't want it obscuring the branches too much or the buds won't get any light and, you never get back budding or anything. So yeah, so lichen cleanup and moss cleanup. So I'm going to start, I'll get all these needles off the base and I'll pick a lot of them away by hand. Just kind of grabbing clumps of them like that. Any of this work you can do in the middle of winter saves you time in spring because all this has to be done anyway. So you might as well do it when, in the middle of winter and you haven't got much to do. Get all your forest cleaned up and your moss pruned and lichen cleaned up and try and spread all your jobs over the whole year. That way you're always busy with your bonsai, which is what I like to be. I was removing all the needles from the base of this tree here and a plate of bark came off. So you can see here, because the moss had kind of come up at the base of the tree, bark is dead tissue and it kind of rotted that section away. You can see it's kind of a bit soft underneath the old bark. So that's an important reason to keep the base of your tree's moss free. Because if that layer of bark rots away, you can actually get an undercut at the base of your tree here, which, you know, if I left that, it might go all the way around. Now that'll heal over nicely, and you know, new bark will form in that area. But just something to keep in mind. Keep your base of your trees moss free. Otherwise you might rot away your bark there. I'm getting a lot of the needles cleaned up. I'm starting to use the tweezers now to get all the clumps of needles out. It'll take me a long time. I may not even be able to get all this done today. I'm sure I'll have to keep working on this forest tomorrow, because I got the lichen, I got the moss removal. There's some shoots that need pruning too. There's some really long ones here that could be pruned back safely. So just, you know, maybe a little cleanup work on the trees too. Look at that moss there, eh? Yeah, so lots of cleanup work to do on the forest still. There's some more moss that have grown up around the base here that needs removing. As you're doing all these operations, it's a good chance for you to inspect your trees. You know, as you're getting all the needles off the trees, you can be looking at the branches. When you're picking all these needles off the forest floor, you can be looking at your landscape, getting ideas, checking out, you know, what rocks are covered up with moss and what needs doing. You can see some weeds in here. There's some liverwort I got to get out. And I really enjoy doing this type of work, you know, working on your forests, cleaning them up, because the results are fantastic when you see them all tidied up, and they just look really cool, really miniature looking. The sun is getting very low on the horizon. I think I've only got about another 20 minutes before it goes behind the fence there. And then it'll get pretty dark in here, but I'll keep working away until then. The sun is setting and it's getting really cold in the greenhouse here, so I'm going to have to leave it at that for day one of my work on the larch forest. I think day two is going to be quite exciting. I've got lichen cleanup, and I'm going to be pruning up all my moss and fixing up my landscape. Some pruning to some of the branches on the trees. I can see a few of them that are getting a little too thick and a little too out of control. So yeah, lots more work to come to the larch forest to get it ready for spring. Before I finish tonight, I'm going to give the forest a watering just to make sure, you know, all the roots are hydrated. And I found this watering can that Jay from Blue Jay Bonsai gave me. Is really handy for getting in the forest around the trees because it's so small that you can maneuver it everywhere. And it puts out, you know, just enough water to kind of give it a good soaking. But yeah, really good that you can get right into the forest like that. Definitely follows the rules, you know, if you have miniature trees, you need miniature tools. I think it's quite fitting working on my larch forest on one of the coldest days of the year. My hands are cold. So there's lots more to come in part two of working on my larch forest. But that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.